Олег, передай, живыми не брать, они людей фашистов убивают.
So we're in the town of Kolovka, which is just west of Donetsk, where this morning pro-Ukrainian militia, the Donbas battalion, were ambushed by the rebels this morning. A couple of them were killed apparently, some dead bodies here. 50% of them, so they say, were wounded in the attack, and they were lucky to escape. They were trapped for a moment of time, and they were lucky to break out of the ambush. The garage behind me here is pretty shot up, and the building behind it's on fire, so we're going to go and check it out. There's a car that's been shot up. It looks like, oh, there's some blood here as well. There's a lot of blood actually, in fact. There's blood where he's tried to open the door here, and blood on the seat, and then obviously where he's kind of tried to get out the car, he's got sort of splashed, the blood's kind of dropped off him, and he's been dragged around here, some like ribbons where he's possibly tried to patch up a wound. The bullet casing's quite close, so perhaps either they were returning fire or someone got very close and shot them. Really fucking messy. So in 3 days' time, there's meant to be a presidential election here in Ukraine, and the Donbas battalion, pro-Ukrainian militias, have been helping the Ukrainian army to fortify towns in Donetsk to make sure the elections can go ahead. So I'm not sure why they were in this town. It's quite far from their usual area of operations, but it's possible that they were here to try and secure the town to make sure the election took place. There's a dead body in the corner here. So we're wearing all black as the Donbas battalion do. It seems that his bag has been rifled through.
Вони йому здавайся, а він ні, відстрілювався, вони його коктейлями Молотова закидали. Да, вони йому почали кричати здавайся, окружили його. І він же ж останеться живий. І він, видно, автомат, каже, чи викинув, виходить і його, каже, сразу очередями. А той там заліз в бур'янах заховався. Ну і що, остався живий один із усіх. Йому ноги попрострелювали, 2 ноги. Ото така.
I mean, that so far the Donbas battalion have, engaged in fairly light operations against lightly armoured checkpoints and taken a couple of buildings back without any casualties. This is like a massive step up in the level of violence that they're taking part in. And I mean, we've seen them in action. They're fairly well organised, but they're a bit ragtag, men, women, old guys, younger people. But I don't think they would ever have been prepared for something as brutal as this. It's got another car here. It's obviously been shot up. There's more shots like on every side, I think, has had bullets passing through it. So what we're hearing is that the Donbas battalion were coming to Kolovka to attack these checkpoints here, but what happened was their plan apparently was leaked out, and the rebels were able to ambush them at this spot. So they were lured in, the Donbas battalion were lured into this position, and then they were attacked from behind or possibly from the flanks whilst they were trying to take these block posts. Trails of blood everywhere. The rebels here were also sleeping 24 hours a day, manning the road. But yeah, it seems from what we're hearing at least, that the Donbass's planned ambush was itself ambushed. Yesterday, some say up to 15 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in another ambush by rebel forces. And today now we have the Donbas battalion, pro-government militia getting attacked and getting the shit kicked out of them basically. So it's a pretty bad couple of days for the government. They've got an election in 3 days, and they're trying to secure this area to make sure it's safe for people who do want to take part in the election to come and vote. But at the moment, the rebels' threat to put a stop to this election, they're certainly carrying out that threat. And I mean, it will take place in certain parts of the region, but a lot of it definitely won't with violence like this. So from what we could gather in Donetsk, there'll be no voting taking place at all. So we've come to Krasnoyarsk, which is to the west of Donetsk, where we were told that there was some voting taking place. We're outside the central administration building, and there's a group of police mixed with one of the pro-Ukrainian battalions providing security to the building, a lot of them armed. Krasnoyarsk is a city where on the day of the referendum for the DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic, 2 people were shot dead by allegedly a pro-Ukrainian militia, but that was never confirmed, so their presence here is a little bit contentious. The Donetsk People's Republic have made numerous threats against the election and anyone who's taking part in it. In Donetsk city itself, it's basically not happening, but the Ukrainian government and its proxy paramilitaries and the Dnipro battalion and other groups like it have been, over the past couple of weeks, trying to secure towns like this to make sure the election does go ahead, and it seems to have been a success here in Krasnoyarsk. Ruslan, can you tell me how the voting has been so far today?
Спокойно проходит голосование, люди спокойно приходят, нет у нас никаких проблем. Но мне звонили из другого, например, участка и говорили, что очень много людей приходит. Я сказал примерно количество проголосовавших у нас. Он сказал, что они не считали, но он сказал, гораздо больше пришло.
Do you think people though might be still scared to vote today because of what's been going on?
Люди опасаются, я бы сказал. Не боятся, но опасаются, потому что все-таки рядом нестабильная обстановка, поэтому люди опасаются. Ну, на выборы желание было идти, когда разносили пригласительные именные всем, то есть люди изъявляли желание прийти, многие в городе.
So people are slowly coming in to vote here in the local electoral commission in Krasnoyarsk. They've said they've had no direct threats against them from the DPR. Other electoral commissions though in the city haven't opened this morning. Some of the local residents say that's because they may fear that they may come under a threat of violence. But so far it's been pretty peaceful here. We're going to head now back to Donetsk where there's a pro-Russian rally, just to see what's going on there. So we're outside the front of the Donetsk People's Republic's headquarters at the regional administration building. There are some ballot boxes here, but obviously we can see how they feel about the whole thing, because on the front of them it says trash and they filled it full of rubbish. So yeah, not really much of fans of the election here.
Но Киев шлет бесов и танки, и НАТО стоит у ворот. Донбасс же под марш славянки снова в атаку идет. Вперед за народное дело! Пусть правит в Донбассе народ! Рабами наджить надоело. Будь славен, Юго-Восток! Я скажу, что почему...
Добровольцев, чеченцев, афганцев, мусульман, которые приехали защищать Россию, защищать русских, защищать интересы этой страны.
И вашим детям, и внукам, и вашим семьям.
So we just turned up at a pro-DPR rally, and the Vostok battalion turned up a pro-Russian militia, and they fired into the air. The crowd went wild for them, hugging, kissing, giving them flowers, giving them water, treats. These guys are really loved here, they're like heroes. They were involved in some pretty serious clashes a couple of days ago, and so this is kind of a bit of a, I guess, maybe a bit of a victory parade. They're really heavily armed. We've seen them here before in this spot on the day of the referendum, but it certainly looks like their numbers have increased since then. That was 2 weeks ago. It's quite a show of force here. So the battalion Vostok, they've got their own APC as well. Not sure where they've got it from, but shows their kind of strength now that they have armoured vehicles. There are people literally handing them cash, you know, 100 hryvnia notes, just really casually, and these guys obviously accepting that.
Молодой человек, передай, живыми не брать, а не людей фашистов убивают.
Нас выборы эти уже не касаются. Мы самостоятельная Донецкая республика. Мы уже Новороссия, все, Новороссия. Нас эти выборы не касаются. Это наши герои, понимаете, это герои. Мы их провожали вот со слезами на глазах, потому что эти ребята защищают наши жизни, жизни наших детей. Вы понимаете, они стоят насмерть стоят. Как мы можем, я не знаю, я каждый божий день хожу в церковь и молюсь за их здоровье. Это страшно, когда погибают в мирное время. На нашей земле мы никуда не приходили, пришли к нам, на наши земли. Мы никуда не ходили, мы защищаем нашу землю. Но почему мы сделали свой выбор? Почему нам насильно диктует киевская хунта? Как нам жить, скажите?
We're marching along the main road on the outskirts of Donetsk. Apparently we're heading towards one of Rina Akhmetov's residences. Now he's Ukraine's richest man. He was firstly accused of supporting the separatists, then last week he came out openly against them. In reply to that, the Donetsk People's Republic basically threatened to nationalize his businesses, so this possibly is part of that plan.
Чё ты нервничаешь? Опусти ствол, блядь. Без эмоций.
So the crowd want to go inside the residence. They're asking for the guards to move out and they to move in. But some officials of the Donetsk People's Republic are asking the crowd to move back to the square because Akhmetov has private security that are apparently very, very well equipped to defend the residents. So obviously the officials here don't want a firefight to kick off with a massive crowd nearby. But the president of the Donetsk People's Republic has just turned up and apparently he's about to talk to the crowd. So we'll have to see what happens.
Видите, народ же много. Мы стараемся сделать так, чтобы все было спокойно.
А до чего народ сюда подошел?
Народ, кажется, возмущен его действиями. Вы спросите народ, да?
Народ хочет собственность иметь свои руках.
Вы видите, у народа иногда возникает такое желание.
Не задавайте провокационные вопросы. Убери. Зачем ты провокационные вопросы задаешь? Подойди мне, спроси, я отвечу, что мы здесь. Пришли козла убрать отсюда, все.
Просьба сохранять спокойствие. Нам очень важен каждый человек, который находится здесь. Но очень важно, чтобы каждый, кто здесь находится, понимал, что он участвует не в погроме, а в народном волеизъявлении Донецкой Народной Республики. Просьба сохранять дисциплину, порядок. Но нам важен каждый из вас.
A lot of people are angry at Akhmetov for his denunciation of the DPR. You know, he's a very important businessman for the region and he is against what the DPR are doing because it threatens his businesses and the people he employs. The militia was still not letting the crowd move into the building, and with it getting hotter, the crowd started to thin and leave on buses heading towards the city centre. With the polls soon closing, we headed to Mariupol, another town to the south where the election was able to take place. So we're at one of the polling stations in Mariupol, where today the police were working alongside workers from Metinvest, which is a company owned by Rina Akhmetov. We're a bit late, we're basically 3 minutes after the end of voting. Some new checkpoints on the road have slowed us down a little bit, but we're going to try and see if we could speak to some of the electoral officials anyway.
Конечно. Участок мы закрываем, голосование закончилось, приступили к пересчету бюллетеней и...
So how did the voting process go today in Mariupol?
Он проходил очень тихо, спокойно. В основном шли голосовать люди пожилого возраста, которые пережили войну, знают весь этот ужас, которые не хотят военных действий, которые хотят синего неба. Приходили люди более такого среднего возраста, которые хотят работы, потому что немножко у нас изменился пенсионный возраст, люди потеряли работу, и совсем очень мало приходило молодежи, которая, может быть, или там не понимает, или боится, то есть я не знаю, с чем это связано, но в основном приходили пожилые люди и среднего возраста.
How do you feel about Akhmetov stepping in and trying to help secure the election taking place in Mariupol?
Ну, на сегодняшний день, если он это обещал, то на сегодняшний момент, на окончание выборов, он это сделал. Но еще впереди мы должны отвести все это, просчитать, и как будет дальше, я не могу утверждать, что мы... Ну, на сегодняшнюю минуту, да, он как бы сделал. Мы со своей стороны постарались, и он обеспечил.
So results from 2 exit polls are now showing that Poroshenko, the chocolate king, has won the vote with around 55% of the vote across the country, and trailing behind him was Yulia Tymoshenko, the former prime minister, with just roughly around 12%. I mean, it was able to take place across a number of towns in the region, mainly thanks to support from the military and oligarchs like Akhmetov, especially in the city here in Mariupol. The fact that the vote went ahead at all threatens the perceived control of the region by the Donetsk People's Republic and puts a real test against the legitimacy of their whole movement.